Hi, my name is Jason Green and I look after the support and consulting team for Atria. In this video guide, I'm going to provide you an overview and step-by-step guide to deploying Atria into a new deployment. Before we start the install, we'll take a look at the architecture of the environment that I have prepared for this demo. I'll run you through the prerequisite items needed before deployment. Then we will go through the core platform deployment from start to finish. At the time of creating this video, the latest version available is 12.13. If you have installed an earlier version or you are planning to install a later version, there may be some slight differences to this video, but remember to always follow our knowledge-based deployment guides, as this will have the latest information required for your installation. Okay, so taking a look at the architecture, I've deployed this environment on Azure. If you take a look at our system requirements guide, and we'll attach a link to that in our video notes, it will show the requirements for servers and networking. I've deployed a fairly simple setup with 2 domain controllers in an availability set, 1 web server, the web server hosts the front end of the application, 1 provisioning server, this is essentially the back end of the application and does all the provisioning work, and 1 SQL server, this is to host our Atria databases. Just for ease, I've joined all my servers to the domain, but you do have options if you want to place the web server in a DMZ and not have a domain joined. So taking a look at the prerequisite items that we'll need to take care of before deployment, and again we've got a knowledge base article that you should follow for this. We'll put a link in the video notes below. The high level items that we need to attend to are AD schema. This needs to be extended using Exchange installation media. I need to do this as my Active Directory is new. If you're using an Active Directory that has had Exchange Server in the past, or you already have Exchange in that environment, then you'll be able to skip this step. The reason we need to do this is that Atria makes use of some AD attributes that only get added when you extend the AD, and that happens in the process when you're installing Exchange. The process is also fairly easy, and I'll show you this in the video. Next up, we need to make sure our servers are 2012 R2 or higher. Today most people will be deploying on server 2016 or 2019. In my lab I've gone with 2019. SQL Server should also be deployed ahead of time and ready to go. You can use Express Edition in very small environments or test labs, but SQL Standard or higher is recommended. PowerShell needs to be at 5.1 for our installers. As I'm running server 2019, this is already there by default. .NET Framework will need to be at 4.8. You can use the offline installer for this, and I'll be doing this in the demo. Before you can install anything, you'll need to request your access token and deployment ID. You can obtain these by emailing our support team and they'll send them through to you. And I'll be pointing out where we use these as we go through the installation process. For every server that we're going to be installing on, and in my case this is the web and the provisioning server, we need to install Atria Tools. Atria Tools essentially contains all our installation commands and options. And we'll also need to be making a connection to our Atria install feed to get the latest install. Right, so let's get into it. First up, I need to take care of my prerequisite items. For this, I need to extend my Active Directory schema. I need to do my deployment for .NET Framework 4.8. And then I'll be installing Atria Tools and connecting to the feed on both my web server and provisioning server. Okay, so I've just jumped onto my web server here. I'm using this as a jump box to get to my other servers. I've got my RDP connections to my other servers here. So our first action item is to extend the Active Directory schema. So I will jump onto my first domain controller. To extend the schema, we're going to need the Exchange installation media. So if I just mount this ISO, double check that it's connected on eDrive, and if I browse to our system requirements guide, I can see the commands here that we need to run to extend the schema. eDrive matches mine, so I don't need to make any changes. I will just grab a command prompt. Paste that in and run the command. For any of these installations that take a little time, I'll speed the video up just to get through them to keep the video short overall. Okay, so that command completed successfully. So let's grab the second command here. Now we need to really change this last bit for Exchange organization name. This is valid if you are planning to deploy Exchange, but it can be anything that you want to call it. But I think it is a one-time set, so you want to set it to what you want. HostMe is my sample company name, so I'll just be using that for now. Okay, so that's our preparation for the Exchange schema completed. We'll move on to the next item. Okay, so now we'll drop back to the web server and take care of installing .NET Framework 4.8. You can get the .NET Framework in an offline installer mode, so I've already downloaded this version here in my downloads. If we run this, it will install .NET Framework 4.8 for us. Okay, so our installation is complete. We can just click finish, and we're going to have to do a restart. So I'll just restart the server and we'll pick things up after the restart. Okay, my web server's rebooted. We're back on the server, connected again. So carrying on with our installation tasks, we now need to deploy Atria tools and get connected to the feed. So I've got my deployment guide here for Atria. If I come down this list, we need to complete these steps here. So these will need to be run from a PowerShell. So let's run this as administrator. And we can just copy each of these across. Just say yes to all of the prompts. Okay, so now we need to switch over to a different directory and run our registration. So this is where you're going to need your personal access token. So we'll just copy this and then I'll grab my token. If we delete this back, Okay, that step's done. We need to repeat these steps on the provisioning server. These .NET Framework 4.8 and these commands that we've just run need to be done on all servers where an installation is going to be run from. In our case, it'll be our web server, and our provisioning server, anything SQL related, will be run from the provisioning server. So I'll take care of that, and then we will return with installing the platform. Okay, so with our prerequisites now complete, we can move on to our production install. So here I am back on the provisioning server. I've completed the prerequisite task that had to happen there. So if we come down our installation guide, we can now begin from the provisioning server and installing our config service. So I'll take these commands. Put in our credentials and let the install run. Okay, that stage is complete. You'll see here a number of actions that it's done. It's been creating some OUs in Active Directory and DNS records, etc. These are all fundamental for the platform to operate. You'll see those in Active Directory. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is set the registration details before we do our database. So grab this command here, and I'll just quickly edit it in Notepad. Okay, so environment, we need to set whether this is a production or a staging or test environment. So I've got production, deployment ID. This is the ID that you would have collected before with your token. So I will just grab mine. Set that like so, and then customer name. This should be your standard customer name or your hosting name that you use for your company. So grab this whole command now and put that into our PowerShell. There we go, that's registered us. Okay, so next up we're going to install our database component. We can grab this command here. We'll just need to edit it in Notepad quickly. So I need to specify my server name. I don't have an instance, so I'll just put server name. My port, it's just the standard 1433. And it'll use Windows Authentication. So I'll take that and drop this into my PowerShell to install. Okay, that installation is complete. So now we can move on to the next provisioning component. Okay, that one's completed. So next is the directory web service. Okay, that one's complete, and now for the last one, platform API. And that one's finished. So from here we move back to installing on the web server. So we'll just leave the server and go to our web server. Right, so we're back on the web server now. So just following on from our provisioning deployment, we can start with our web server, new, because this is a new web server. So next command to run will be install Atria component web. I'm just running this component because my server is domain joined. If it's not domain joined, there's separate instructions here to follow. Okay, so the web component is complete. Right, so taking a look in our guide, our next steps are to finalize the primary location setup. So this is a new installation, so we need to follow this. So we must browse to this URL here. Okay, so when you log into the platform, you'll use your username that you use for the installation. That will be the admin account that you did the install with. In my case, that was hostmeadmin. You need to append it with the _ASP and then log in with your domain credentials for this account. Once you've logged in, we are recommending to go to Configuration System Manager Server Roles and assign the Domain Controller server role to the servers that will be used by the platform. So we can go to Configuration System Manager Server Roles, and here we go. The domain controllers that will be used by the platform will be this one, save, and this one, save. Alright, that's it. So the next thing we need to do on the Atria menu is select customers, and there will be a customer named service provider. Change this. So come back to here, go to customers, and here it says service provider, change this. So that's what we're looking for. We need to expand this customer and select edit customer. So we expand it, edit customer. So full name, I can change this to my company name. So this is going to be HostMe Service Provider. The contact can stay the same, and I'll click provision. We also need to update the domain management. And we can add hostme.co.nz. Primary date. So then we can go to the users of that current customer, and we only have our installer cred ASP user. So we can expand account settings on that user and make sure that service schema administrator is enabled. Okay, so if we go to users, edit our user. So we need to make sure that service schema administrator is selected. Provision. Okay, so that's pretty much the installation of the core platform complete. We'll be doing some follow-up videos to this one where we'll show you through configuring and deploying services, creating new customers and users. If there are any topics out there that you want us to cover off, feel free to get in touch with us and we'll make a video for you. Thanks for watching this video.